When the Biden administration told the American people that the virus didn't come from a lab, was that misinformation or disinformation?
Congressman, again, I can't speak to discussions that were had on that topic. It's been a couple of years, but again, generally—
The White House put pressure on us to censor the lab leak theory. This was something the White House cared about, so much so that the top people at Facebook were having a group discussion on it. So I'm just asking, when they said that, was that misinformation or disinformation?
Congressman, I can't recall the specific example.
When the Biden administration said that masks work, was that misinformation or disinformation?
Again, Congressman, we were communicating the best research at the time, but I also believe that that was a discussion that began in the previous administration as well.
When the President of the United States, the previous president, suggested that perhaps the ingestion of bleach might cure COVID, was that misinformation or disinformation? Congressman,
I can't speak.
All right, got it.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and in the raucous arena of political theater, where egos clash and ideologies collide, there's seldom a dull moment.
And when he suggested perhaps sources of light in certain orifices of the body might also work, was that misinformation or disinformation?
I believe my understanding is that was medically inaccurate, yeah.
Recently, the spotlight fell on a showdown between two congressmen, Representatives Gerry Connolly and the notorious Jim Jordan.
And by the way, did that president get COVID?
Congressman, I recall that he did.
And did he get vaccinated?
Congressman, I believe that he did.
Yeah.
The stage was set when Connolly openly ridiculed Jordan's attempt to peddle misinformation about COVID-19. Jordan, a master of bluster and bullying tactics, found himself on the receiving end for once, caught red-handed in a web of deceit. It all began with the investigation into what Jordan labeled as a censorship scheme by the Biden administration. His target, White House staffers Rob Flaherty and Andy Slavitt, accused of pressuring social media platforms to silence dissenting voices.
When the White House said there was no such thing as natural immunity, was that misinformation or disinformation?
Again, Congressman, I am not a medical expert, and my job was to communicate on behalf of a team of medical experts.
So you weren't a medical expert, but you could suggest to Facebook that they needed to change their algorithms so that the American people would not see stuff from the Daily Wire. They'd only see stuff from the New York Times. You can do that, but you can't tell me if they were guessing or lying when they said something that was absolutely not true.
The stage was set with emails exchanged between Flaherty and Facebook, hinting at a concerted effort to combat COVID-19 misinformation. But Jordan saw something more sinister, a bid to manipulate public discourse and sway the upcoming election. His inquiry wasn't just about uncovering the truth, it was a vendetta fueled by past clashes with Flaherty and Slavitt. Their refusal to bend to his will likely fueled Jordan's determination to paint them as villains in this latest showdown. This wasn't just about policy or procedure, it was personal. As Jordan grilled Flaherty and Slavitt during the hearing, his disdain for them was palpable. He sought to undermine their credibility and cast doubt on their motives, painting them as coercive actors intent on stifling free speech. Representative Gerry Connolly's moment in the spotlight during the hearing was nothing short of unforgettable. With Jim Jordan's barrage of questions finally subsiding, Connolly seized the opportunity to inject a dose of sanity into the proceedings.
On the screen, as you can see, there was a theory floating around in social media in the first half of 2021 that said COVID vaccines cause humans to become magnetic. For example, one of these posts states the magnetism from the vaccine reportedly spreads throughout the body over time. And it shows pictures of a person's arm in the middle there with spoons attached to it from the magnetic attraction. Mr. Slavitt, is there any evidence at all that COVID vaccines caused human skin to become magnetic?
No, Congressman, not that I'm aware of.
So after I get the vaccine, I don't need to start holding forks and spoons in my arm to see if they stick?
Yeah, nothing that I'm aware of.
As Connolly addressed the panel, he wasted no time in confronting the absurdity head-on with a pointed inquiry about Donald Trump's infamous suggestions involving bleach and UV light. Connolly deftly exposed the absurdity of spreading dangerous misinformation.
This one says, the magnetic skin condition were emerging daily, and there were verified reports that whoever took the COVID vaccine was was going to be magnetic. Mr. Slaver, was this post accurate?
I don't believe so.
Many of us got the Moderna vaccine. Has it ever contained ingredients that are fatal or carcinogenic or that cause infertility or nerve, liver, or kidney damage that you know of?
I don't believe so. I think that vaccine has been given hundreds of millions of times in the United States. Not aware of it.
I just think it's important that when we use words like disinformation, misinformation, or hectoring of U.S. government officials who are trying to save lives, that we see the other side. There was a real problem. And people lost their lives because they believed that stuff. And it had no basis in scientific fact, and it jeopardized lives in the middle of a pandemic, the worst pandemic in over 100 years. I yield back.
Connolly didn't miss words when highlighting the real-world consequences of misinformation. From the tragic tales of people ingesting horse dewormer and losing their intestinal lining to the reality of lives lost due to vaccine hesitancy, Connolly made it clear that the stakes were too high to ignore. In the end, Connolly's message rang loud and clear. The battle against misinformation wasn't about stifling free speech. It was about safeguarding public health and saving lives. And in the moment, the panelists stood validated in their efforts to combat falsehoods and protect the vulnerable from the dangers of misinformation. In the aftermath of Representative Gerry Connolly's powerful statements, the glaring truth shone through. Jim Jordan and the MAGA faithful were not just wrong, they were recklessly ignorant, arrogantly spreading falsehoods that endangered lives. In the end, the verdict was clear. Jim Jordan and his merry band of nitwits may have thought they held the upper hand, but they were ultimately outmatched by the weight of evidence and reason. And as the dust settled on yet another political spectacle, one truth remained undeniable. Ignorance may be bliss for some, but it's a perilous path for us all. And that is an absolute fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.